Solo mining is the embodiment of the original dream, a defiant act of individual sovereignty where one person, one node, and one miner take a stand against centralized control. We don't just mine for profit, we mine for principle. We mine for ourselves and for each other and for the unyielding spirit at Bitcoin's core. Join us as we dig in and hold the line. This is the Home Mining Podcast. Hello, Bitcoin home miners. 2Sats here, and I want to give a quick thank you to our sponsors before we jump into another amazing episode here on the Home Mining Podcast. First up, if you want to stack sats the right way in the US or Canada, you've got to check out today's sponsor, Bitcoin Well. It's a fully non-custodial platform. It's straight to your own wallet using on-chain or Lightning. They never custody your funds. That's the way it should be. So use our link to join Bitcoin Well. You'll also earn bonus points with every Bitcoin buy you make when you sign up using our link. And those points are actually redeemable for coin tosses into their Bitcoin wishing well, which gets you free sats. You can even win up to 1 million sats in the wishing well, which is amazing. Or you can save up your points and use them for a Bidax Gamma from Solo Satoshi. So just go ahead and scan the QR code on the screen or hit the link in the description and join me on Bitcoin Well to start stacking sats today. Now, during this episode, have your Lightning wallets ready because we'll also be giving away some free sats courtesy of Bitcoin Well. And if you're ready to go ahead and start your Bitcoin home mining journey with us, go ahead and grab a Bidax Gamma or a NerdQX++ from the Solo Satoshi store using our link or by scanning the QR code you see on the screen now. Listeners of the Home Mining Podcast that use this link have access to an exclusive discount code. All you got to do is go to the store using our link, put whatever you want in your cart, and when you go to checkout, use code 2SATS, the number 2, SATS, and you can snag yourself a nice little discount on your purchase. We really appreciate you supporting the podcast. I know you're going to enjoy this episode, and let's dig in to this next episode. Hello and welcome back to the Home Mining Podcast by Solo Satoshi. I'm your host, 2Sats, and today I'm joined for round 2 by Cade Peterson of Softwarm, LLC. You guys loved the first episode. He's only gotten bigger and better with his build-out since then, so we're having him back for round 2. Cade, great to see you again. Welcome back.
Thanks, Ryan. Glad to be here. Appreciate you inviting me on. Sorry for the delay.
No, it's my pleasure to have you back, man. There's so many good things that you've been doing, and we're going to just dig into all of them here. No fluff, all meat. Let's jump right into a tweet that you made that I really like, and I've got a few of them collected that we can kind of philosophize on, but you said, I think that Bitcoin is more than money, and people just don't realize it yet. What were you thinking when you put that out? What did you mean? What kind of prompted that?
Okay, well, I think there's a lot of use cases and utility out that can be derived from Bitcoin technology than just passing money to each other. And I know I might step in an argument here, but I think that manipulating, knots versus core, I guess, and changing the way the data can be recorded to the Bitcoin blockchain. It may not be what people like or think it should be, but that doesn't negate the utility of it. And I by no means claim to be a programmer, or a code writer or anything like that. But from a perspective of a mining company, I need to be properly incentivized to maintain the Bitcoin mining servers, right? And we need to think if what we're doing to change things is going to disincentivize those. That's an important consideration. And so when I look at that and I think about how data may be written into it, maybe there is some utility that we don't quite realize yet. I think it's kind of arrogant to assume that we know exactly how it will always be used for all eternity. Yeah, there's some haters out there about Jason Lowry's thesis, software. But he does talk about how the Chinese used gunpowder as medicine for hundreds of years before they ever realize it could be a propellant, right? I'm not saying it'll be that long until we figure other things out, but what if there is potential there that we just haven't codified yet with ways to securely transmit data, ways to authenticate data, right? Is the Bitcoin blockchain as a source of truth, or the ledger as a source of truth, going to be what anchors AI from creating a bunch of false things that we can't interpolate, that we can't understand if it's real or not? We're already seeing that, like with things that aren't real, that seem real, that are AI generated. But for example, what if we could sign videos? Like, what if the White House needs to release an official video and we need to authenticate it, and so they could somehow sign it with a like their own Bitcoin wallet that we know is the White House's. And if you take the signature off, it corrupts the data, something like that. But like I said, I don't know enough to really get into the specifics and technical details, and maybe that hasn't been invented yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if someone does invent it soon. And in that case, do we still want Bitcoin to only operate as money, or in form of a currency? And yeah, I know that was envisioned as its only use case before, but is it really bad if it's used for other things? I don't think so. I think it might just be what we need. But I'm not going to jump to conclusions one way or the other. Just keep my mind open, and I don't want to say that it should be one way or should be another way. That's what I'm kind of getting at.
That's an interesting take, because I feel like a lot of the miners that we talk to, a lot of the Bitcoin miners tend to come down more on the other side of this. So I'm surprised, and also, agree with you in the sense that we should keep our mind open to unseen possibilities. I don't know if I think that needs to be on the layer one. Is there a potential that other blockchains could be used for those kinds of examples that you just mentioned, in terms of like verifying proofs of like imaging or videos or documents or something like that? I don't know if that needs to be in the the L1 Bitcoin blockchain, but there's definitely going to be, like you said, a use case for uh, being able to verify those kinds of important things in a world that's increasingly fake and forged and AI generated.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I think there's a few people that are really qualified to make good opinions on this that I listen to, and I try to listen to all sides and hear their argument. But to be some kind of expert about it, I'm not. Not at all. But I know that I'm operating these machines. I'm getting, and I know that now, like the hash price isn't very high, and we're getting a lot of blocks that aren't full. And so, I mean, I don't know if the hope is in the future for them to be full. Maybe as more financial stuff comes on and adopts it. But I mean, the transaction fees are super low right now anyway.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, even an increase in 20, even 100% on the transaction fees wouldn't keep me from using it, but it certainly would help subsidize the miners that are keeping the network running. So I don't know, maybe we're cutting off our own feet by limiting the kind of data that can be put in there. But I do understand the argument from the other perspective too. I just try to keep an open mind and listen to people, and not be a whiny little bitch on the internet.
Well, and to that point, man, one of the most frustrating things about that whole saga, which I feel like the drama around it and the discussion around it has kind of died down, but to that point, that's what was going on, right? If you looked at X, it was just a lot of shit flinging, a lot of name calling. There was not a lot of constructive debate happening, at least not that you could just go on and follow coherently, step by step. I find that to be the most frustrating part, because a lot of us, 95% or more of us, are not at the technical level required to arbitrarily like say or deliver a verdict on any of this.
Yeah.
We can have our feelings, we can have our thoughts, but really we don't have the education level that these core developers or the knots developers have, and we needed a much more civil discourse and a much more thorough discourse than what we got. And so I think that led to it just being a really big dramatic mess rather than something that people were able to inform themselves thoroughly on.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I kind of stayed out of it. I don't really say much about it on there, but I do try to listen to other people's opinions and see where they're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. I find best to just stay out of that because we have so many more interesting things to talk about anyways when it comes down to it. It's going to do what it's going to do. Nodes are going to cast their votes by what they choose to run. And just like in the block size wars, Bitcoin will find a way. Bitcoin will not die. Bitcoin will carry on. I don't think we're under any um, immediate existential threat. So I just kind of, like you, learned as much as I could, but ultimately didn't really engage too much with it because we're interested in mining for heat. We're interested in all of the amazing application that can be had through mining through for heat and home mining. The revolution of home mining is taking root again in the last year or two. People are really interested in what really we would call the cypherpunk ethos, right? Like mining at home and sort of recapturing what was taken away from us with the big conglomerates that are out there mining. So I'd love to get into um, a lot of different things that you've been building lately. Tell us about, so you've got about 23 different sites that you've built out for Bitcoin recapture, heat reuse, and mining, varying from 100 terahash to 9 petahash. Um, I mean, that's significantly more than when we had you on the first time, I believe. So just what's been the most exciting build out in the last year?
Uh, well, it was nice to get we started the 40 by 60 shop 2 years ago to, and build it from the ground up to be heated with miners. Um, and it worked. It works great. It works exactly like we planned it. Like it just runs. It's nice and warm in there. The owner's still engineering his own heat dump. He wants to do it separately through his glycol loop, which is fine. So in the meantime, he just kind of cracks his door sometimes because it gets too hot in there. But he's running 6S19J Pros, and we can turn them down a little bit. But point being is he would have had to heat the building anyway, right? And so it's wintertime. It's plenty warm in there. He's insulated it now. I had a video on X showing that build out. So that was pretty exciting to just have it running regularly. It's really reliable. We've had a couple computers with problems, but that's not really the system. It's just the S19s, eventually sometimes die, but they're pretty reliable machines too. We've got a couple aircraft hangars going now. One is going to eventually be an aircraft wash station heated with computers.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. And my background's aviation. So I'm a A&P mechanic and did aircraft aviation maintenance for pretty solid 15 years. And then I did some defense stuff at the end of my Air Force career that was more like contract oversight, but still aviation related. I worked for doing oversight on Northrop Grumman and Lockheed and all those things. So that's kind of where I picked up a lot of this stuff is from aircraft systems, I guess, and understand how those work. Heat exchangers and all that. It's just kind of been easy to understand. So, I think my Bitcoin project house, it's kind of my favorite because it really reminds me of, it's not reminds me, it brings to mind people that try to engineer everything perfectly before they build it. Right. And that goes back to other things I've said before, like just build it. We've got this house and it is it started in 1905. So it's like 120 years old from the start. And then it had an addition in 1915. And we know this because we pulled the newspapers out of the walls while we're building this house. And they're from like 1915, 1914. And they show they talk about World War I and the Kaiser and they're old, right? And then another section of the house is 1925 papers. And then another section is 1955 or 52 or something like that. So it's kind of hodgepodge together. And the only way to put these heat loops in this hydronic system is a mix of one room has it in the ceiling, another has it in the walls. Two of them do. One is in the floor. And we always put the loops in the exterior walls. And I could actually show you. Do you want me to share some pictures of this?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'll share some pictures. Let's see. So this is an example here of an in wall. This is an exterior wall. And so we've put this pretty much a double hydronic loop. There's not just one loop, there's two that go through here. And this is an entire 300-foot, half-inch loop of PEX. And so this goes directly to the heat exchangers, which run off the actual Bitcoin miner itself. So we've got a C2 with two S19J Pros in it, and it heats this whole thing. Let's see, if I can figure out how to open the rest of my images here. So yeah, we've got that, and then this is what it looks like in the floor of the other room, where we take this and put it inside the floor. And so this is dirt underneath it, right? This building right here, you see these logs on the side?
Yep.
This is a 1905 cabin, right? So we built the floor out and then put these hydronic loops in there and then put aluminum on them as much as possible to help radiate the heat up. And so it keeps the room pretty warm and comfortable.
And where's the actual miner there?
I'll show you a picture where the miner is. So those are just loops that come out from the miner and the hydronic manifold and go out to the rest of the house. This is a different one, but it's an example of a heat exchanger, which I wanted to share with people. And you can see, like, on one side, we have the hot oil go through from the immersion tank. And then the other side is glycol. And we've basically added these valves just in case we don't want to use this heat exchanger to heat for some reason and we just want to revert to the traditional boiler. We can just close these valves. And it'll still mine just fine. It's got a heat dump outside. So this is totally optional to run to keep the computers running and the house heated. But what it does is offsets all of the heat costs for the house. And so essentially we take this, and when this is heated, it warms that fluid up to 120 Fahrenheit pretty easily. And we just turn the boiler elements off on the electric boiler that exists on a separate circuit.
Amazing.
So let's close that. So this here is the heat dump loop. So this is the house that I was showing you the circuits in, right? And so this little section here was built in like 1955 or something. So, like, my point being with this house is it's not new construction. So I really don't care if people think I should put the loops in the wall or whatever, right? Like, I'm going to put them in where they fit and where you can get them in without causing like total destruction of the house. And it's working fine, right? And I could have gone down the road of like, oh, where's the optimal location and how many square foot per BTU and whatever. Point being is that we've got a big 300-foot loop in each room, and you can hook the thermostat to the hydronic control, and the computers are going to adjust on their own as long as you have a heat dump circuit. So in this case, my heat dump circuit is this propane tank, right? And I've had people say things like, oh, you don't want to heat the propane tank up. It's going to blow up. It's only 120 degrees, bro. You know, like, you got propane tanks that sit out in the sun, okay? And they get hot. So the thing about this is it's going to dump this heat in and around the dirt here. And this is an underground propane tank. And you can see when we were all done with it, that basically it is buried. You see that? So
Yeah.
we buried it with clean backfill. And so it runs, this loop runs through this conduit here, protected in the trench, and then runs up in a steel conduit into the house. where then it runs to the manifold. And so the computers can generally dump about 1 kilowatt of heat in this tank and in the surrounding earth. And then we also have other heat dumps like sidewalk, right? Sidewalk snowmelt systems.
Yep.
And so the concept being that you can consistently run your computers and you have kind of a cushion where the firmware will change itself, the Brains OS. And I think Lux will do it too, but we can get into that a little bit later, why I've preferred to use Brains. But having that heat dump loop has been really important. And this is a wall on the inside, on a different wall, where we're putting the loops in the lower wall here, and there's some up here as well. And so we've had to reside the outside and put insulation on the outside and all that. But generally speaking, because it's an old retrofit, I don't have the same kind of permit requirements and building standards that I need to meet, because like these are really non-standard studs when they're spacing, the construction, the layers over the years and all that stuff. We don't have to meet all of the same like standardized code requirements. But we are passing code inspections. Like I did have this inspected by the Idaho State HVAC dude that comes and does the inspections, right? It's signed off, it's done. So this is all completed now on these loops here. So that's, being able to pass code inspection is kind of a big deal. And it's one reason why I like immersion miners, because for one, I think they're more safe than like a air-cooled miner.
Okay.
The building code requires that forced air heaters meet UL standard, or that they're listed. Right. And this is where you run into a problem is you've got all these different types of like amp miners, for example. And if you were to go try to get one UL listed for that purpose, as soon as you got a new model, it's not the same thing, right? And so, like, at what point, and this goes into the water heater issue, when you put a brand new circuit board in it that's different, a different design, does that still meet the UL certification that it has? How do you upgrade?
What is a UL certification?
UL's Underwriter's Laboratory.
Okay.
So it's like where a home appliance needs to be inspected to meet certain standards. Like a space heater, if you kick it over, it needs to shut off.
Right.
Right. But that's a little different because they have red hot elements in them and they could start a fire. Right. So what is the mechanism, and is it trustworthy to shut down a Bitcoin miner, like an ASIC server? What is the mechanism to shut it off if it gets too hot? Is the firmware certified like in some standard? Right. And so I think the answer is no for a lot of those things. But if you take a computer and you put it in oil, it's not a forced air heater anymore. Right. And so there's essentially no code yet in a lot of ways for some of these things. Right. And so like this is an example of the rough-in, and you can see these heat exchangers here. And so these lines run to a separate C2 tank. One of these heat exchangers heats, see, these go to a 1-inch PEX line that goes to the front of the house, and these are a 1-inch PEX line that goes to the back. And so with a recirculation pump, we can heat a water tank with it. Right. And then you got these meter boxes here, and this will all be closed in, eventually when we get all the wiring and piping done. This is a better look at it here. So we've got a power strip dedicated for each machine. And then, we can log the kilowatt hours used on those. And see, it's running at 52 Celsius right there. Right now it's running at 60. I just checked on it today. So it's nice and warm in there. The computers are pretty stable. And it runs, I'll close this one here and this one. It runs basically to a set of heat exchangers like I showed before. Dang it. Close that picture out. But it's basically on the other side of this tank. There's 2 more heat exchangers like this, and that's what heats the glycol system.
Gotcha.
And so this little 2-unit computer tank pretty much heats the house. It's got,
Wow.
I could run them up to 8 kilowatts pretty easily with the current power supply units on them.
Oh, what do you have in there? J Pros?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the issue is being able to express the heat,
Right.
right? And so each time I add another loop on there, I can express a few more 100 watts of heat. Once I get the heat exchanger, the snow melt system's hooked up, each 400-foot loop will dump about a kilowatt of heat. And that gives the computers kind of cushion, to where they don't have a hard on off. And you can imagine if you only have loops inside the house, if you had all the loops shut off because house reaches target temperature, then your computers just overheat.
Okay.
Right. And so now if I lived in a place where it's not profitable to mine, I would want them to go really low or shut down.
Right.
But I'm not in that situation. I'm in a situation where I want them to continue to mine. And so I need them to be able to adjust dynamically with the demand.
And so I imagine most of the work that you're doing is for people in that exact situation where they don't want to shut these things off. They want to be able to dynamically adjust based on their needs and keep the miners going and keep the sats stacking while they're getting their heat.
Yeah, even if like we're at a marginal profitability with the S19J Pro right now, but even so, the systems, if you size them correctly, it's really close. It's not worth turning off,
Right.
especially when you consider that you're getting your tax deduction. You consider that you can claim a loss if you do have a little bit of loss on that, and you can also get your capital credits from the local co-op. So if you're part of a co-op, you're basically part owner of the co-op, right? That's why it's called co-op. And so the more money you spend on your electrical bill, the greater your capital credit contribution gets to be. So depending on the co-op, they will eventually give you checks based upon your electrical bill. So it's another way to earn money. So in our co-op, for example, I think it's 20 years down the road, they start issuing you more and more checks. So, when I'm 63 or so, because I'm 46 now and I've been doing this for a while. When I'm 63, I'm going to start getting checks from the electric company based upon all the money I'm spending right now. So I'm kind of incentivized to spend more as long as my bill's covered. So when you start mining for heat in your house, there's more incentives than just recovering your power bill, is what I'm saying. And to some people that might be KYC free sats,
Yes.
right? And what it's worth to each person is up to them. But if they understand all the benefits, they can kind of make that decision, like how much is it worth to you to melt your snow? Even if you're operating an older machine and you're still mining at a loss, is it worth it? Yeah, well, maybe I'm only spending 1 cent per kilowatt hour. Right.
Yeah, I think what's so great about talking to you is that the scale at which you build and the things that you're thinking about and factoring into all of this it's at such a high level compared to I don't want to compare it to any one person, but just in general where the space is at, let's say, where the collective is at with all of this. I feel like you are definitely taking it up a notch and thinking about um how to integrate this in a very real world sense. And like you just said, like what's it worth to each person? That's going to vary. That's so very true. Like KYC free sats carry a huge premium for a lot of people, but for somebody who's not a Bitcoiner, who's just using this to offset their heating bill and capture the heat that they need anyways, that premium doesn't exist to them, and so other things matter more. And I think you've done a really good job of framing that, and I think a lot of people are going to be able to draw on that wisdom that you have going forward when they want to build something like this out in their circumstances as to what matters and why and how to factor all that in and how to maximize their uh their benefit basically.
Yeah. I think the question that irritates me the most on X is like, people ask me, what is your power rate? And it has nothing to do with anything. I mean, yeah, sure, it does dictate, how much profit you make in the end and you walk away with, but they're missing the point. They're missing the point that I have to use electricity to heat. It's the most cost effective method. And as long as that one case is true, it doesn't matter how much your energy is. And of course, if there's alternate methods that are cheaper, yeah. But when people ask me that question, I feel like they're trying to evaluate like whether I've made a good decision or not to do this, and not so much if it would be a good fit for them. They should ask themselves, what's your
Right.
power rate? You know, like the power rate I pay has no bearing on them at all. But
Right.
for the record, I'll tell everybody, we pay about on residential rates about 6 cents a kilowatt hour. About that. And yeah, that's pretty cheap. But there's cheaper places. Like if you look up in Wenatchee, Washington, or certain Chelan, right? They're paying super low electric rates. But then you've got what I guarantee is a bunch of bureaucracy you don't need up there, right? It's going full commie, in my opinion. I guess but I kind of say that jokingly, but not. Like
Sure.
there's like I think you'd have to be nuts to open my kind of business in Washington, simply because there's just going to be a bunch of people who want to control what you're deploying, and it's not in the name of safety. It's just their perception and some hoops you got to jump through to meet some government requirements, and it's just not worth it. And we don't operate a business where we're mining for profit. In the sense, although we do want to make a profit, yeah, sure, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's replacing an existing need. And like I just can't imagine trying to go open something up there and get through the permits. There'd be someone who says something, you can't do something, you can't do this, and it's just too thick. But if anybody wants to take that on, I think some of those cities in Washington would be a good place to, if you could figure it out, do something like I'm doing. Your margins would be a lot higher.
So speaking
So
of government, I know when we did our first episode, you mentioned that you had tried to bring a lot of this to a local governor or a local, politician, and his eyes glazed over, and he gave you like 1 minute of his time, and that was that. Did you ever revisit that? Did you ever make any progress locally with getting these people to kind of clue in to what you're doing?
well, I'm on city council
Oh, okay.
for my town. So it's not really something that I think our local government needs to do anything with. I mean, I think it would be beneficial for us to recover some of our city's sunk heat costs by running Bitcoin computers to, mine, because we have these space heaters and we have a bill essentially. Also, I think that there could be some benefits to the town by installing like a hydroelectric turbine on the water tank outlet at the top of the hill, right? To where you could run this turbine and mine Bitcoin with it and make money for the city. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean the city needs to keep a Bitcoin treasury. Just like a lot of normies can't get past in their head that they think like if they just mine Bitcoin to heat that they're stuck in Bitcoin forever and they can't do anything with it. They don't conceptualize that you could sell it every month if you want to.
Sure.
But now with companies like River, you can have essentially an institutional account and maybe even just direct your miners to it, where it just automatically goes to this custodian, and the city could make a decision financially every month or whatever at a city council meeting, or 6 months on, okay, what are we going to do with our Bitcoin proceeds? Do we
Absolutely.
do we want to sell them or do we want to keep them? And so I think it just a lot of people are scared of things they don't know and understand, and a lot of people still conflate the term Bitcoin with crypto, kind of like Kleenex and tissue paper, right?
Sure.
One's a name brand, but not quite the same analogy. You get what I'm saying, though. Like
Yes, yes.
people don't understand the difference. And if I get one more person telling me about XRP, I think I'm going to go jump off a cliff.
You and I both. Yeah. Enough of that.
I'm so sick of it, man. And like it's like the first thing I hear from a lot of people. Well, did you hear about XRP? Oh, okay, all right, here we go. So you're going to heat your house with XRP? No, you're not.
Actually, just just today, I had some XRP Army news account or something comment under one of my Bitcoin mining posts. This guy was talking about how he's using some wood furnace thing for heat, and I said, "Oh," he said, "I'm starting to come around to the idea of Bitcoin." And I said, "Well, you're onto the right track. Keep digging." And then this XRP bot account says, "Oh yeah, keep digging." And then when you realize that Bitcoin is outdated, trash, and it can't be used at any great scale, then sell it, sell it, sell it. And I was just like, "Oh, here we go. Here comes the two brain cell brigade."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sickening stuff. So I wanted to ask you, before we dive into a lot of the other topics that were slightly touched on throughout this last little bit, when these inspectors come in and see what you've done, do any of them get curious and ask you anything past, just doing the inspection?
Uh, yeah. I think like one of them mentioned to me last time we talked. He said the state doesn't know what to do with me. Right?
It's kind of a badge
Like
of honor.
we don't know what to do with you, man. Like I'm like, all right, well, I'd be more than happy to help weigh in on some code if it's going to be written. Um, I do. I think with electricians more so. I have different electricians that do work. Some are more interested in it and than others. Like the plumber I was talking to, I think tradesmen really get more interested than the actual inspectors. But the like tradesmen, like one plumber,
Right.
he's like, I was talking to him about it for I don't know a good year. This is like I like started doing this a few years ago, and I mentioned to him the concept, and then I saw him probably 6 months later, and he's like, "Hey, man, I wanted to show you this awesome, uh, propane boiler setup I put in Sun Valley." And Sun Valley, Idaho is pretty high end place. There's a lot of money up there, a lot of movie stars or whatever buy houses. So he shows this to me, and I was like, "Wow, that's amazing." He's like, "Oh yeah, and the efficiency's off the charts, man. It's like so much better." I was like, "Oh well, does it pay you?" And he kind of looked at me like, "No, why would it pay you?" And
Yeah,
I'm like, "Yeah, well, why would you install something that doesn't pay you?"
exactly.
And that's when it clicked for him, like it finally clicked for him, and we started talking a lot more about systems. And so he actually ended up putting in a lot of the plumbing for my project house. And there's another guy that he works with put in the hydronic system for the 40 by 60 shop. Right, he's a licensed plumber. So I don't put in utility systems for people as a contractor. I'm not an electrician or a plumber. So they need to get licensed contractors to do that. But I'll consult with their plumber or their electrician to tell them what the equipment does and what it needs. But I don't go in and actually do that stuff. I only do that for myself. I'll build my own manifolds out and do all that myself.
Yeah, no, but I think you just nailed it beautifully. Like that is the punchline that's going to start hitting people in the face as we go forward, which is why would you be installing something that doesn't pay you? And I feel
Yeah.
like we're coming into an era, a new dawn where that is exactly the punchline and you're going to look at people in those trades that are doing all of this and thinking that, they've got it all figured out. And then you're like, yeah, but that doesn't pay you. And then they're like, why would it pay? Like you said, why would it pay me? And then I think those are the perfect people to eventually kind of get it and go, oh, there's a huge business model here. First of all, right?
Yeah.
Is teaming up with somebody like you who gets the mining, the firmware and the hardware side of things there, and combining it with what they do in their licensed trades and professions, and going, hey, this is a huge untapped market, and eventually, I believe, and I don't think it's going to be all that far away. You're going to look back at people that aren't being paid to do everyday things that they need to do for their households anyways, or their shops or whatever, and you're going to look at them and go, I can't believe you're not running something that pays you. This is stupid. Why would you be incurring that expense and not getting anything for it?
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, I
Just like
think
the water
it's
heater, right? The new water heater that came out. What's
yes.
the name of the company?
Superheat. So let's talk about that. You said in our pre-show chat that it's a cool idea. You had said at one point early on actually in the NBC News article that you spoke in, that's going to happen one day. And sure enough, it seems to be happening through a company, Superheat. But you also have some reservations or some sort of some questions or some shortcomings that might kind of be possible, or that we should all be basically thinking more about. And what I'd love if you could lay those out. What are the potential shortcomings or failures or things that you want to see in place to know that, hey, this is a working product or a working idea?
Well, I'm sure it works, right? Like I'm sure they heat water just fine. But in terms of long-term usage and the actual amount of money you get from it, I think they're kind of over exaggerating a little bit on the money. I think their calculations might be based on consistent running of the water heater, like if it ran all the time,
Right.
right? Because it says up to, which okay, maybe it's a hotel water heater, right? The other thing is, like, it's not an instant water heater, right? So it's probably designed to run on a 30 amp circuit like a normal household water heater. And if you get an instant water heater, for example, if you want, they're like little boxes, right? They don't have a reservoir tank. So a tanked water heater, electric, is going to circulate, that water until it's hot, till it reaches target temperature. But a single on-demand electric water heater takes a huge amount of current to heat that water in one pass. Like you need like 100 amps to have a water line heat from 50 or 40 degrees up to 130 in one pass. Right. So you still have a recirculation issue, which you got to do. Okay. So let's say I've got this equipment and it's a UL listed water heater under Ryder's Laboratory. Like it's been tested and it meets UL standards for a water heater. It's got a specific circuit board in it, and it's got a very specific design that's been submitted as an engineering design to UL, and that's what they certify. So anything that goes in and swaps out the element would probably need to be UL certified too. So if you have replacement elements, which means you need to have the ability to take out the heating element and replace it with a newer one. What you're going to want to do is the chips improve, right?
Sure.
And so I think if they figured that out, that sounds, or maybe it's on the board for them to figure out in the long term, to be able to have a standardized board you can buy from them or something with newer chips in it that are more efficient. But there's ways to do that with like central Bitcoin miners in an immersion tank. And this goes back to why I like immersion so much. So if I have that infrastructure in place, and like I showed you with my project house, where I've got heat exchangers, I don't need to have circuit boards in the tank. I don't need heating elements in the tank. All I need is a recirculation pump. And that way the water tank is connected to heat exchangers, and the computers themselves I can swap out at any time. I just take the whole machine out and put a new one in.
Sure.
And And so the exclusivity, like I don't have a name brand circuit board that I need to buy. Like right now with the water heater, there's different brands of elements I can buy. I can go to True Value Hardware, I can go to Walmart or Home Depot, and I can find an element for a water heater. Maybe not at Walmart, but maybe. I don't know. I don't look there. I'm just saying there's different brands and they have a standardized thread pattern and they have a length and they run on a certain resistance and they have a certain, they're built as a replacement for one another. But you're not going to have that, at least initially with these. And so the ability to upgrade your water heater is what I'm getting at. Like you're going to see you're going to see diminished returns over time, and being able to upgrade it to where you're not running the equivalent of an S9 to heat your water, right? Is kind of where I'm going with this. And if you just have one immersion tank in the center of your home, you can pretty easily accomplish all these things without having individual appliances to heat, just like the baseboard heaters. I think, was it Avalon that makes them?
Yes. Yep.
So in order to upgrade that, you're going to need to buy a new baseboard heater. They're not probably going to sell boards that you just swap out in that case, right? And so you essentially buy an appliance that you don't need on all the time, and you pay a premium for it. And when you consider the value and the amount of hash rate you get for the amount you pay for the core, the computer that's running it, you're better off having a central appliance, essentially, where you have a tank and it's all distributed automatically. And the only thing you need to do is change the computer.
Absolutely. That's the value of modularity that I think a lot of people, I think it's like people like the idea of like just plug and play, but there is a cost to that. It's a premium, which you just rightly sort of illustrated for us. And it's all closed source. So there's no just, swapping this out and swapping a new one in. Where if you're running your own, then something goes down or efficiency gets better or upgrades are out there, you can just plug in, you can just swap it out and swap a new one in or swap a better one in, which will actually long term be much more effective and efficient and, gain you more, whether it be sats or efficiency or heat than just having this like plug and play with a premium, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have more options. I mean, once you've bought the immersion tank, you bought the fluid, and you have everything piped up, like you've paid for all your infrastructure. And as
Right.
things come available in the future, you have way more options to upgrade. I mean, what if I don't deal with anything but Bitcoin, right? But what if someone else wanted to run a computer server that does other things? Whatever that is, you're not just limited to only running, Bitcoin.
Right.
And maybe running Bitcoin's not the right term, but I'm just saying like you can only mine one type of thing. When you buy a water heater, it only does one type of thing. I think what people want is flexibility. Even, and even with the miners, like I just I did a single wide trailer recently. Okay. And we took the C2 unit and put it outside with a dedicated circuit. And what this did is improve the safety of the home like tremendously, because it's a 1978 or earlier single wide mobile home, right? And it's got old wires in it, and the owner's plug-in space heater in it. It would it almost had a fire. For one, you can't pull a lot of current through those. And so what they did is put in a 50 amp dedicated circuit from the breaker box outside into a little called a shack, kind of like a doghouse, and put all the computers and electrical equipment out there. And then the only thing in the house is the hot oil that goes to a heat exchanger. And that place is smoking, man. It's hot. They don't build fire anymore. Like
Hmm.
it's just nice and warm. It's safer. And then we have the heat dump going under the skirting. So the main part of the house gets heated, and then the rest of the heat gets dumped under the skirting, so they don't have a cold floor anymore, and their pipes are warm. And with two S19K Pros, we're looking at, which I recommend, by the way. Those are good little machines. I like them. We're running at about 110% of utility cost. So now their house is, and they don't need to use their fireplace anymore either, right? Which I'm not saying fireplaces are dangerous, but there is a greater risk by operating the fireplace. Like you have risk of chimney fire. And if it gets really cold, they still have their fireplace. Like if it's down to -20 or whatever, they'll probably start a fire, right? But the point being is that not only has it made the quality of life better, but it's also actually generating revenue for them.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, they had a capital expense, but they also don't have to have that sunk or lost cost of running space heaters under their house in the wintertime to keep the pipes from freezing either. And so it's really something that I think a lot of people should consider. And on top of that, we don't have any electrical systems in the home. The only thing that's in the home is a dry cooler with a fan, right? And if someone wants to get picky on an inspection about what the fan is or whatever, that's pretty nitpicky, honestly. But yeah, I think it could change a lot of people's lives, and it would be neat to see like maybe some kind of government subsidy program if they're talking about like low income heating assistance.
Sure.
I'm not saying I want government subsidy programs on everything, but sometimes, and you see a lot of times, the government invests in things like daycares, right? Or like rideshare programs, or like you see all this fraud going on, and nothing good comes of it. So
They could do a lot of good if they stop focusing on daycares in Minnesota and
yeah,
subsidize
man,
Bitcoin miners or
I
something.
still can't believe it. It's
I-
crazy. It's
it is wild. But man, it's one of the reasons I really love talking with you on the rare chance that I get to, because you really make me excited, because you're solving problems, real world problems that people have that they don't really realize there are solutions for. They know that they have an expense and that they have a problem, right? Needing this heat, but they don't realize that they can not only offset it, but be in a surplus and reduce their risk of fires and electrical problems, or needing that fireplace and the firewood costs and all these other things. It's just, you're just like this magic genie that kind of shows up, and you're like, check this out. I just
it sounds too
it's
good to
so
be true,
exciting.
though. Like some people, you talk to them about it, and they're like, "Okay, what's the catch?" And but we always try to structure it, or we do structure it to where they just get direct payouts from the pool. Like there's no question about it. Like I don't issue them payments. I don't handle their money. I don't
Yeah.
want to. It's just direct. So
Yeah, you don't want to end up as a money transmitter.
no,
We learned that the hard way in the Samurai wallet case, where they, of course, did not custody anybody's money and still ended up getting the long, you know what, of the law. So,
yeah.
yeah, free Samurai for sure. So I want to get into a lot more with you, but I want to circle back to, I keep hearing S19, J Pro, and K Pro. Why do you love those units so much? Why do they tend to be, from what I can tell, your standard kind of go-to two models? And how do you go about figuring out or deciding which one you're going to source for? What project, what does the scale of the project factor into it? Like what's your checklist for deciding what you're going to use?
A lot of it depends on the owner. And I go back to the types of users, right? You've got your heat only, luxury heat, those that mine for profit, and then your ideologues. And so most customers just want some heat. And if you just want some heat and you look at the capital expense, it's not worth buying an S21 for a few reasons, because they're like 3 times as much as an S19J, more than that, actually. I
Yeah.
think an S21 is like $2,500 right now, maybe 27. So, but you can buy an S19J Pro for like $500-$400 used. And then you could buy a K Pro for brand new for like $800, maybe a little more, depending. But I have other considerations too, like firmware, right? Because over in Bitmain, they keep putting on this firmware that doesn't allow you aftermarket firmware installation, right? And honestly, if Bitmain had their shit together and like actually produced firmware that was worth something, it wouldn't be that big a deal. But they're basically choking out all the utility I can use the machines for. So I'm about to shit can Bitmain. And I hope they're
Absolutely.
listening somewhere.
I hope so too. Yeah, that'd be
They
great.
like, and I mean, I'd rather, honestly, if there was an American company available, that had the same kind of interaction with Brains OS, I'd probably consider it. But that's one of the main drivers is like my customers like the interface and they like the utility of Brains OS, and I'm installing computers for them. And it goes into like the discussion with Luke and I on X. I'd like to point more hash rate towards Ocean, but I need an interface for my customers. And I'm not going to help them set up their web browser. They need an app. They need an app for what they can just look at and see what's going on. And whether that's just something somebody codes up together, if there was an open source one that we could use, that'd be great, whatever.
Absolutely.
But then I also need to be able to split the hash rate on the machine so I can get the money that I'm being paid essentially to help run their computers at their house. And that's part of the deal is I want 10% of the produced Bitcoin, much like a rental management fee, but I need that automatically distributed. I don't want, and I'm not going to receive their Bitcoin and pay them, right? It's too much of a headache to figure out, too much time. And I'm not going to go seek the Bitcoin payment from them because a lot of them just want to dump it in a wallet and they don't even know how to send it. They just hold on to it and they're just, putting it away somewhere. So the idea of using Ocean's great, and I get it. And I think it would be awesome to point a lot of my hash rate to, but I need a good interface, like an app like BrainsPool has. All my customers like BrainsPool. When I show them the app and they see the interface on it, it's a selling point for them. And like, if I was to just, follow the advice that Luke was arguing with me about in the Twitter chat or X chat, sorry, I'm still stuck in the past. I would never make the sale. It's too confusing for people. They're like, what the hell is this, a Bitcoin address? Like even the interface of copying and pasting that address and putting it in a bookmarks tab and like whatever. They need an app. They need something simple that just consolidates that and makes it visually pleasing. And it makes them feel like they're high tech, right? Without actually having to be high tech.
I feel like there's a huge opportunity there for Ocean or whoever can come up with something like this because, yeah, you nailed it. Like, there's no way that, some 78-year-old boomer or something is going to go and learn what a Bolt 12 compatible wallet is and how to configure Lightning payouts to there. Like, no chance, right? Like, the average home mining pleb still writes into technical support for their BitAxe or their NerdAxe just to ask these, do I need a node? What is a node? How does getting payouts from pooled mining work with Ocean? Like, people don't know that stuff. And, much less somebody that has the ability to build out one of these 5 petahash mines for heat that you're building out. Like, they just need something that handles all of that for them. And so I feel like there's a really big missed opportunity from the pool operators like Ocean, who could easily get something like this coded up and distributed and have people like you championing it out in the world who's actually building these amazing setups and just say, hey, here's the app that you need. Here's the utility and the ability to do all this stuff that you need for your customers. Go get it out into the world.
Yeah, I think if we had a easy to understand interface for my customers, I don't have time or interest on going and spending an hour showing somebody who's got one miner running about how to configure their web page to monitor Ocean. And then, I've got this other problem where I need the money split. And as far as percentages go, and like getting 10% of the pool or whatever that is, you attribute it to a wallet with Ocean and to where that's just what it's reporting to. And so that's another problem. I think, and this goes into more technical stuff that I don't claim to be an expert on at all. I just need it to work how I want it to work. And if someone could say to me, hey, do it this way, maybe I could figure something out there. But I need it to be transparent to my customer.
Absolutely.
I need them to know and see exactly how much money's coming out. And the transparency and trust with my existing customers is one reason why I don't have anybody that's pissed at me. All my customers see exactly how much money they're making. They know I'm not ripping them off.
Yeah.
And they can come back to me at any time and say, hey, look, I don't want you to manage this for me anymore. I want to do it myself. And I'm fine with that. They could do it themselves. But the thing is, I've educated a lot of people on how to do it. And I don't know, like I said, we got 23 sites, right? And when you consider the amount of machines we have, I want to say we have about 120 machines around the city, and we have 1,000 people.
Wow.
So
over 10%.
Well, I mean, some are concentrated in one location, right?
Sure.
So, but in terms of like users per, as a ratio of city population, like everybody is aware of what's going on and they've seen it in different places. And yeah, so just having people being able to trust you is a big deal. And so you don't want barriers to that through technical complexity.
So with Brains, and I have no experience with Brains yet. I have my stealth miner from Sat Stacking Pleb on the way. It's currently being held up at Mexican Customs, of course. But it's when I do get it here, hopefully in the next week or so, I'm going to be learning a lot more about Brains. But from what it sounds like, you're able to split the payments right there through their app, or you still have to use something like Coinos?
Yeah, it's in the pool. It's in the pool. So you just assign different wallets to a percentage split in the pool.
That's incredible. Amazing.
And then
that is perfect plug and play.
Yeah, and the app shows the customer exactly what their split is. It shows them how much money my company has and it shows how much they've got. And then when the payouts occur, they just occur and they're automatic. I'm not issuing them a check. I'm not doing the transfer and giving them a receipt. It's just from Brains Pool.
Yep.
And at any point, all of my customers have the option to completely eliminate their relationship with me if they want. But I'm going to tell you right now, nobody eliminates their relationship because they trust me and we don't rip people off and we make sure that they're getting their value. And some of that comes to talking to the customer and being like, you don't want to do that. They think they're going to spend a bunch of money on something and like, bro, you can't even get rid of the heat, man. You're going to have a lot more infrastructure to be able to do that. So let's just start with a couple air-cooled miners and you can get your feet wet and see if you like it or not. And then if you want to move on to something else, we'll do that. But, some folks just have unrealistic expectations of how it's going to work. So,
well, it's great that they can trust you or build that trust, but ultimately they can verify it right there for themselves, which is the name of the game with what we're into here in the Bitcoin space. And so I think there's a huge amount of value for you as a business owner and for people that are building in this space to be able to have that level of transparency with whoever you are building for and having them be able to verify it so that trust can be built. And so, yeah, we need tools like that. So essentially your plea to Luke and Mechanic and the Ocean team would be build me something that is an equivalent to that, but that I can use to point people at Ocean. Build me something that I can transparently split the payouts and the hash rate, the payouts from the hash rate as needed, and make it on an interface that's, legible and beautiful and does what it needs to do.
Yeah, and don't pawn off the expectation that I need to train everybody on what to do, right? I don't have time for that.
You're not tech
I don't
support.
think yeah, nobody's got time for that. We like the concept of Ocean. I'd love to use it, but from a consumer perspective, it's not feasible for my type of clientele. I need them to bridge the gap on it and or somebody out there to do it. But in the meantime, I'm busy building shit. Okay. I'm building stuff. Like I got stuff I'm building right now. I was just tonight, I spent an hour working on some insulation on a spot, right? And putting in more things. And like that's what I do. I don't have time to do like programming. That's not my thing. And
Absolutely.
to expect that all these folks who are new to the whole concept and don't have a technical background and just want to heat their homes to expect that they're going to do something, even like saving a bookmark, is too much, dude. They're not going to do it. And then I don't make a sale. Okay. So I'm like trying to be helpful here. I'm not trying to like poo on anybody's um, concepts and all that stuff, but should really consider ways. And I don't know if that's through a proxy or how exactly that would work on splitting the rewards from a single computer. But that is a challenge that needs to be overcome because you can't get the computers in these technically challenged homes and businesses unless you're getting a portion of the split. You just can't do it. You can't justify like, what's the mechanism you get paid? I'm not going to go track down a bunch of
Right.
money and have them write me a check every month, you know? And so that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Yeah, if the pools made it easier and the firmware people made it easier for the builders like yourself, I think this industry would just absolutely skyrocket in terms of um, uptake, right? In terms of
Mhm.
adoption, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I would agree with you. Like, man, anybody from Ocean that listens to this, I know there's people in and around Ocean that do listen to this and that will come on the show at some point. Uh, Listen to guys like Cade. Listen to people that are actually out there building. It's incumbent upon you guys to help bridge that gap. And one thing I always come back to with all of this stuff, because it is technical, a lot of these businesses and a lot of the people that could adopt this won't because there's so much friction. Friction is the key word, the key concept here. And if we can all work together in an open source way to remove friction, our industry is going to win. What we're building is going to win. So, like, let's help each other remove friction and get more hash rate heating and just hash rate in general in the hands of businesses, real estate professionals, tradespeople, and just the everyday, pleb miner at home.
Yeah. And, even let's get in a bigger market segment. President Trump signed that executive order basically requiring federal government to acquire Bitcoin on a cost neutral basis. What's a cost neutral basis is heating.
Good point.
And you know what? We want to use an American based pool to do it with. And when you think of government contracts, like say, for example, you become a government contractor to provide heating solutions for the federal government, and the term of that is the split of the hash rate. Or maybe the government just pays you. I don't know. The problem with getting a fixed payment is the point of diminishing returns, where um, your payment basically might stay the same, right? Like, let's say you agree that you're going to do it for $1,000 a month for a bigger, like 10 petahash thing, right? And you agree to that. At some point, the customer is getting less and less and less and less money, and the monthly payment is more and more and more and more of the share in terms of value. Whereas if the business owner that manages the hash rate receives a percentage of the hash rate, they're incentivized to keep the hash rate running, because if you have less computers running, you don't make as much money. And then you reduce your risk not only from the customer but from the actual business operating the management of that, right? So I'm just saying, like, I think that the government, the U.S. government as well, will um, start to mine Bitcoin in a sense for heat recapture at some point. Maybe there'll be some pilot programs to do that with, but they have to see that they're losing money, and maybe in these locations where they're using electricity for central boilers, right? So
It's great that
instead
you
of
said that because of all the people I've talked to, nobody has brought up that idea of the government like saying, okay, we're establishing a budget neutral strategic Bitcoin reserve. And so far, all they've done is seize people's assets and confiscate Bitcoin. But sitting right in front of us is a multi-billion-dollar industry, which is the home comfort heating market.
yeah,
And if if you added that to the flywheel here for the government, I mean, they would be racking it in a very budget neutral way. They'd be leaps and bounds ahead of other countries who are not doing that, and they wouldn't have to seize anybody's assets by force. And I think that would be an extremely wise budget neutral way. Whoever acts on that first is going to be doing really well.
yeah. So I mean, I'm sure there's locations where it doesn't make sense. You know, maybe there's certain locations with, like, if you go to a military base, the old school setups were centralized district heat, where you had like a boiler tower or whatever, and it would heat the dorms through radiators, right? And they would have like a central heating concept. And depending on the fuel source for that, you know, it may or may not make sense to use electricity to do it. But I am almost certain that there's some places where it's especially cheap to use electricity to heat. And if the federal government, whether it's a small building, like even the buildings here, like where I live, I have Forest Service buildings. They're either got propane or electricity. And if we're heating those Forest Service buildings with electricity and the government's getting the money, the Bitcoin that's produced by it, it's revenue neutral, right? It's cost neutral. And there's a lot of locations that could be like that. And I'm not saying that everyone's like that, but I'm saying there are some. There's quite a few.
There is a percentage that's out there, and it's completely untapped. Man, that is genius. You're definitely like really thinking outside of the box, but in ways that make a lot of sense. It's just not been done yet. I think again, we're gonna look back in 10 years and go, how did we miss this? But people like yourself have been brainstorming these ideas all along. It's just takes the right person to kind of clue in and go, oh wow, this is genius. We should implement it right away. But I can't imagine a world in 10, 15 years where that's not what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm certain we're going to do it. And you see that in the superheat water tank, right? And they're going to sell a bunch of those, and they're going to be great, you know, and I'm happy for them and all that stuff. But in terms of large scale mining, yeah, I think the central district heating, central heat core concept, where even if you got a group of 4 buildings, you have maybe a 6-unit tank in the middle of them, and it's all hydronically ran, all the buildings. You're seeing that on a bigger scale in Scandinavian countries. There's no reason you can't scale that down and do that in a smaller case. I mean, I've got another project house where we have 12 S21s running decentralized in a different building, and we're going to run a 1.25-inch hydronic insulated tube in a trench to the next building over.
Wow.
And so all of the mining is done in one building, but the other building has no boiler essentially in it. It's just a hydronic distribution system inside the building.
So your customers, this is what I love about what you said about the percentages, is that basically if they're wise to it, your customers are 24/7, 365 DCAing into Bitcoin. They're stacking sats, or they're
Yeah.
selling it off and they're making money. You as a business owner, have a passive income source generated in the best money mankind has ever known. So you set this up once, you take your 10%, and you're consistently stacking sats in the background without having to, smash a buy button on any centralized exchange ever again if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Super powerful. Again, a very early new market and a new idea, a new business that is completely untapped. So, if you're a tradesperson, if you're a technical person thinking about this, HVAC technicians, you're incentivized to help people install the best things possible and keep them up. Whereas typically those people make money going out and performing repairs on broken down furnaces and systems. Well, flip that on its head. You're incentivized to do great labor, great job, use the best parts and components and things possible because you want to maximize uptime because that means your payout is going to be higher.
Yep.
Completely
That's right.
flipping the fiat world on its head and smashing it in the face. I love it.
Yeah. It's WWF around here.
Absolutely, man. Okay, cool. So great aspect for everybody to consider right there is the passive income that can be not only generated as a user of these systems, but as somebody who's providing these systems as well. So, um, kind of linking onto that, what are your sales pitches in terms of what are your key points that you're trying to get across to people as to why they'd want to be doing this? Do these people kind of come out of the woodwork and come to you? Do they see one of your other projects and come to you? Like what are the sort of the key realizations that they're having that makes them want to implement this? And a lot of them Bitcoiners already, or are they just people that this makes economic sense to them? Kind of break that down.
Okay. So, I would say a lot of times people are completely unaware of it, and I haven't been as much lately. But I think generally you just go to the bar and talk to people. Much like when I was in business school, they said most of your deals will be made at the bar. Like people, and not really people getting really drunk or anything like that. It's like people have a couple drinks and start to talk and socialize, and you show them a couple pictures of different concepts, and like even locally being able to wash your car, like we have like kind of a circular in a sense, from a foundation up Bitcoin economy where like you've seen my snowmelt system.
Yep.
So the concrete for that snowmelt system, the hot water was heated with Bitcoin miners before it even was delivered, right? And so people go to the car wash and wash their vehicle, and all that is open because it's heated with Bitcoin computers. And in the past, like it wasn't open at all because to run it and keep it open every day, you'd spend $30 a day in propane, just to melt the snow. And not only that, but both bays weren't open. So like only one bay was open, and they would insulate the other and shut it off and just put a big blanket over it, just to try to melt the snow better. And now they're like, turn it up, let's mine some more Bitcoin, and it's keeping everything melted. It's heating the water enough, just with 6 computers to, just keep it like 50 to 70 Fahrenheit if it's really cold out and it's still melting snow. Otherwise it gets warmer than that. But the the point being, like, people are actually using things where they derive this utility from, right? They go in certain buildings and there's heaters that are operating this way, right? And they see friends and family that have these kind of things. They're like, "What the hell is that?" And I go, "Shit, man! Last year I made $1,000. Look, it's right here." And they're like, "Oh, well, I need me some Bitcoin."
Yeah.
And then I do get calls, and people know how to find me and all that stuff. But I'm in a small town too. And so everybody knows everybody, and there's a certain level of trust that you wouldn't necessarily get in a more populated area. And plus, I can only imagine, man, the level of scrutiny you'd get, and like unreasonable scrutiny is what I'm saying, from like different city permitting agencies and things like that in other areas. But here it's like the regulations and stuff are lower. So the barrier to entry, I think, is a lot lower for a lot of people. And they have, working examples they can go look at and see that they didn't understand before. Like I take them down to the concrete plant where they heat the water and show them the system working. And they're like, oh, I had no idea. I've never seen anything like this. But when they see it, they understand how it works. And they understand that it's not a Ponzi scheme, right? I hear that a lot from people. And I'm sure you have too. They think Bitcoin's a
Sure.
Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
They don't understand what a Ponzi scheme is.
That would be the first problem, is that yes, they are not very not very literate, and they don't know what a Ponzi scheme even is. XRP. No.
Mhm.
But it goes back to people conflating crypto and Bitcoin as the same thing. And so anytime they hear Bitcoin, they automatically associate it with this. And so now not only are you saying, hey, you can have some Bitcoin, you're saying install this, elaborate system into your house. And, it's just, I can understand that the hurdles mentally that people have to go through to get there is pretty large, depending on what kind of person you are. And so it can definitely put people off. But if they take the time to understand it, man, this amazing world and opportunity really does open up to them. So it's on us to help reduce those barriers, reduce the friction, provide education like episodes like this that we can point people to listen to really get an understanding that, hey, this isn't a Ponzi scheme. It's by definition not even related. Why Bitcoin is different than crypto, the power of mining, the reasons behind mining and heat reuse at home and in your business. And so, grateful for you coming on and helping articulate and unpack a lot of this for people, because I think, like I said, 10, 15 years down the line, we're going to look back and go, how were we missing this? It was right in front of us. And now it's just going to be in everybody's home and in everybody's business, potentially in like commercial settings, like hotels, like what Grant Cardone is doing. I know you guys, or you posted a comment under one of his things on X that was saying, wait until you realize that all the luxury properties that you are buying and putting people in could be running Bitcoin miners. What do you again, obviously not tax advice, not financial advice or any of that, but there's a big opportunity there potentially, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you got these, especially now with the commercial buildings and the correction that we all know is coming. I mean, it was bad before, but after 2020 and everybody started working remotely more, there's less and less staffed businesses. The need for commercial space is not the same as it used to be. And anyone saying that it is just not being objective, in my opinion. So you have all these commercial buildings that have these loans on them that are due, and they're not able to get filled up. Like, look at the malls. The malls are dying, right? Some malls are okay. A lot of them have been forced to convert a lot of their square footage to maybe bigger stores, or these little boutique stores like Spencer's even. Spencer's is like a little boutique store with a bunch of novelty items in it. And I think the last one I saw had moved out of a mall and it's in its own little micro strip mall somewhere. It's just one store. But I'm sure a lot of those have closed. And over the decades, we've seen these malls like just not be a place where people necessarily go to shop because, I mean, we've got online marketplaces like Amazon. Um, I just don't think the business proposition is quite there anymore with a lot of these stores. You see abandoned Walmart buildings. I think like you look at Colorado Springs, Colorado, of all the places I've been, it's probably the worst urban planning I've ever seen in my life. Like there's these pockets of deserted commercial properties mixed in with residential properties. Like there's no clear definition. The streets go all over the place. And those aren't going to be used. Now, to the extent of how much power they have running to them and the value of that, I don't know. But my point is that there's a lot of abandoned commercial properties around the country. And going back to residential use case as well, as soon as you include all the utilities and start charging a premium for the heat, you're essentially selling the heat of your Bitcoin mining operation. And so especially if it's profitable to mine just for mining, your rates are low enough, you can really increase your margins quite a bit. And not only that, but you can really decrease your capital costs if you buy older equipment and heat with it and still charge the people for all utilities included in the heat. And so in these commercial properties, it's going to allow you to have better margins when you lease, obviously to a storefront or whatever, where they expect that you pay for the heat, compared to a place where you're not getting any money recaptured from heating the place. Right. And especially if you've got like heat intensive businesses, like, I don't know if you, I have to think of one that's a commercial entity that really requires a lot of heat, like maybe a paint booth, like, right? Maybe you rent to a paint company. You can have these actual explosion proof heaters that are heated with oil and have no explosion related parts on them, no engine or no motors on them that produce sparks, that meet these explosion proof standards. It's actually pretty easy to do. So I think that there's certain businesses that'll maybe run a little bit better on the Bitcoin mining to provide the heat. But I mean, we've got a building in town here that's huge. It's got a big electrical feed on it, right? And they can't really mine anything right now because they don't have anything installed. But they would have to heat that huge 10,000 square foot building with propane or electric, and there's no heat recovery. But if you could like own the building and just heat it and lease it out, you could lease it out at a lower cost, you have better margins, you're more likely to get occupied or occupancy in there. So I think you kind of see where I'm going with this. Like, there's a big opportunity, in my opinion, coming, especially in these commercial buildings where they can heat and recover their costs.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just takes a little bit of innovating, and like you always say, just build it, right? Get out there and build it. And I think the use cases will just continue to present themselves, as you've found, as you've just gotten your hands dirty out there in the real world, building so many different things. I think, Cade, you really go down in my mind as the person in our space that has the most wide-ranging application and builds. You're not just doing one thing all the time. You're constantly innovating and pushing the envelope and covering such a wide variety of use cases and applications. And I think that's extremely valuable. The work that you're doing.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, just trying to build something that makes sense and isn't, I don't know, just a one hat pony or one trick pony.
Yeah,
kind of thing,
You're nailing it, man. So yeah, just to wrap up then, I guess, because we have been jamming for an hour and a half, and I want to be respectful of your time, and always welcome on for many more chats, because they're very enjoyable, and I know everybody really got a lot of value out of the first, and this one's even better. I guess what I'm really curious about in closing is there anything sort of on the cusp that you can see in the next few years that is really exciting for you in terms of hardware, firmware, or anything that's going to enhance what you're able to build? The cost of S21s coming down, is that going to be something that you're going to like replace your S19 J Pros and K Pros with once they become more affordable, or it's going to be business as usual for you over the next like year or two, let's say?
Yeah, I think I really like what Audine's doing, and the point that they have, like their immersion miner, can be configured for 240 to 277 volts or 208 to 240 volt. The fact that it's built for immersion, the fact that it could get hotter. And I actually look forward to getting kind of away from Bitmain. Bitmain, well, for one, they're all made in China, and it's not that I got um, beef with Bitmain per se, but I do have beef with them making their firmware where it's blocking out aftermarket uploads.
Yeah.
Like, China's got a problem with embedding bullshit in their circuit boards and stuff.
Backdoors and spyware and all sorts of different things.
Oh yeah, and it's an acknowledged problem. That's why the federal government has in the federal acquisition regulation they have requirements that if you're a federal contractor that you can't run Chinese-made equipment on the same network that you provide the federal contract on.
Good reason, yeah.
It's there for a reason, right? So it's not like I'm just making stuff up. And so, I mean, there's a lot to wonder. Like, is Bitmain embedding things in their servers? And when they make their firmware locked in like that, it raises a lot of concerns because you can't just override it and put something else in. They lock it out, like they disable their SD card slot and their USB slot. So it's like, what's the deal, bro? So for that and a bunch of other reasons, including like system performance, like for example, the S21s. Okay, S19J Pros run really good in immersion. I know they're not meant to be in immersion; they aren't built to do that. But you would think, as a company, that Bitmain would be like, oh well, people are using it this way. Let's make sure that our new standard can still be used that way, even though we may not intend for it to be used exclusively that way. Let's make sure that the thermal paste doesn't dissolve, right? Let's make sure the firmware is usable for these different things. And they didn't do any of that. Like for example, you get one bad chip on a board and you got to take the whole fucking miner out, and troubleshoot the boards. You can't turn one off.
They're really hamstringing themselves and the everyday miner, right? Like they do the exact opposite of what you would want them to do. And they seem to do it at every single opportunity. And
I gotta wonder if
I
it's
think a lot of
man.
people are just absolutely. It has to. I can't conceive of another reason why like any business would not listen to its users, especially in such a niche of a niche of a niche. Like they have a captive market where people are pretty much forced to use their stuff that they have a monopoly on, and at every opportunity to make it better and make it more accessible and usable and adaptable, they do the exact opposite. You can understand why people are fed up and hate it and will honestly leap at any opportunity to do away with them. So they're poisoning their own well with this.
Yeah, I agree. The Bitcoin heat reuse is going to be far bigger than mining for profit. And unless you have some other utility that you get out of mining Bitcoin, whether it's grid balancing, or just the whole model of mining for profit is just going to rely on cheap energy, and energy is going to have to get cheaper and cheaper in order to make these companies profitable. I mean, that's what Riot pivoted over to some AI stuff with their infrastructure.
Yes.
And great, but I think it's feasible to consider that other people with large power feeds are going to do the same thing.
So you think that AI is going to start to take more and more of the share away from these big mining operations, and that's ultimately going to benefit the home miner, right? Because we're not so concerned with the hash price. We're concerned with other things. And I think that's going to be one of the big swings in any upcoming bear market that we're really going to benefit from, is that equipment is going to be depreciating quicker. It's going to become more accessible to us. Other players are going to try to decentralize things, open source things. I mean, that is out of the bag now. It is happening, and it's going to, I think, be accelerated by these people, these companies, I should say, pivoting to AI because they care about profit only. And ultimately, that's going to benefit people like us that are building.
Well, right. And even now we're talking about like companies pivoting to AI, they have 100% uptime requirement, right? 99.9999, whatever. And their whole configuration to host this AI stuff is different. They have a much more complex maintenance requirement. And Bitcoin, on the other hand, Bitcoin mining can be turned on and off. So I don't think that home miners for heat are going to use computers or graphics cards or whatever chipset is used for supporting AI. But maybe in the future, there will be some type of modularity that can supplement AI that people will want to put in instead. That's possible. And maybe it will displace some more Bitcoin miners, right? But I think ultimately Bitcoin mining is going to settle in heat reuse. And there might be some locations like hydroelectric where they do load balancing, right? And they're not going to do that with AI model. But just picture an inverse load balancing concept where instead of turning up and down the base load of a hydroelectric plant to accommodate the solar and the wind that they want to put in, you instead have a large load of Bitcoin miners that either increases or decreases its consumption to balance the grid. And you leave that base load of your hydroelectric at constant rate or natural gas or whatever. And then you could accommodate those things. But that's, I don't have a beef with solar and wind, but it's like, it's not reliable.
Right.
And it's on for a few hours a day. And when it comes on, if you've got excess power production, you got to do something. You need to turn down your base load or use it, right? So I also foresee in the future where the government actually mandates grid balancing devices on these alternative sources of production, where if the grid doesn't need the power, it gets burned off as Bitcoin while it's being produced.
Yep, that seems like a very logical guess or projection into the future. I think probably only a matter of time. Obviously, we can't say when, but it does seem like a logical next step. So, prepare for it, be ready for it, mine at home, mine for heat, do all the things that we talked about in this episode. I hope it gets people thinking about what's possible, given the wide breadth of builds that you've put out into the world. I know you documented all very, very well on your X page at Softwarm LLC. So guys, please do be sure to go and give Cade a follow. He is one of the most deserving people of your attention that's on the Twitterverse these days. X, as we have to call it now. I'm still stuck in the old days with you on X. Are you on Nostr, or is there anywhere else you want people to check you out?
No, I'm not. I'm not on Nostr. I don't have anything against Nostr. I just haven't made an account. So maybe at some point in the future I'll be on there.
Okay, so the best place to go then to keep up with everything that you're doing is on at Softwarm LLC on X.
Awesome. Thanks for the time. It was good to talk to you.
My pleasure, man. Anything else you want to leave with us, or you got it all out?
Just build it.
Brilliant. Just build it. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in to part 2, episode 2 with Cade Peterson of Softwarm LLC. Packed full of technical information, hands-on information, real-world application. I hope you got a lot from it. I know I did personally. More motivated and excited than ever before and inspired by what's possible in Bitcoin mining. Share this episode with somebody that you know that's into Bitcoin mining or could use Bitcoin mining heat reuse in their life. Share the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, Cade.
Thanks.